This is going to be a kind of rambling type video where I talk about a few different things, perception, distortions, maybe meditation briefly, and idealism, materialism, ontology, epistemology, all these different philosophical things. So sometimes I'll sit in very deep thought, just conflicted about what it means to be alive, what it means to exist, and why the fundamental question that's asked in metaphysics is why is there something as opposed to nothing? That's like the $1 million question, and I don't know, you don't know. Idealism proposes that our perception of reality, the way that we perceive things and make distinction between things, we separate things, is all mind. Without mind, there's no real separation between you watching this and me making the video. But then, what is mind? Is mind an emergent property of the brain, or is and neurology and all of the different neural networking in the brain that is so complex that we don't understand how consciousness emerges, or is it not even an emergent property? Is consciousness there first and foremost? Is consciousness something that is fundamental in the universe, as fundamental as oxygen and water? I think that that could fall under panpsychism. I'm throwing a lot of pretty big words out there, and it's kind of pointless to throw these words out there, but I spend so much time in deep thought, and there's not really any meaning to it, but then there's also not much meaning to anything, really, unless you create that meaning in a kind of only the mind can truly create, right? Like, it's all perception. And in regards to meditation, I was meditating quite heavily last year to try and reduce my anxiety and panic disorder. It helped a lot in the short term. In fact, it helped me to such a degree that I was doing it almost non-stop. I was almost addicted to meditation. I was just meditating constantly. I was neglecting other important factors in my life, and I was just meditating. Got to a certain point where I don't know what people would call this, whether they call it ego dissolution or what they would call it. For me, it felt like a sudden expansive world opened up where I didn't feel disconnect from the external and the internal world. But it wasn't pleasant either. I don't know whether it wasn't unpleasant because that I already had a very sort of conflicted sense of self, damaged sense of self. I think it's very important to have a sense of self. I know that there's not one sort of place in the mind or the brain where the self sits, so I just consider myself a subject of experience, someone that is entitled to bodily autonomy, as the same as every other living conscious being out there on the planet. Our ability to suffer and perceive, create with our mind, I think, is where I would place that intrinsic worth that I've talked about in other videos. But yeah, just in regards to meditation, it became actually unpleasant, and I felt feelings of leaving my body, as if my body was not just this shell that encased my inner consciousness or soul or whatever you want to call it, but rather it was just melding into the rest of reality, and it was just kind of made me feel disillusioned. And it was not the most pleasant experience I've ever had, to be honest. I had that a few times, which led to panic attacks and psychosis-like symptoms. And then it got me thinking about what truly is reality. We kind of create reality in our mind, right? And I say to myself sometimes that you spend so much time thinking about these philosophical concepts, and does it actually benefit your life in any way? I don't know. Not particularly. Not particularly, but it's interesting. It's also quite confusing, and it's amazing that you can spend pretty much your whole life looking through different, you can research different philosophies, and you could spend your whole life barely even scraping at the cusp of what you can truly discover. And that's incredible, but it's also like mind-blowing. So yeah, just got an itchy eyeball. I don't know, it's an interesting topic, isn't it? I was just listening to one of my favourite bands, Riverside. I had my playlist on while I was in the shower. It was flicking between songs like from Porcupine Tree, Riverside, Aphex Twin, and just gets me in this state of thinking where I feel like I need to talk and express, even though I really want to absorb more information and learn more and be able to just... I think I naturally am inclined to sit in deep thought, as opposed to taking action, which I think is much more important for the most part. Taking action, making tangible changes in your life. Yeah, but you need to be able to somehow manifest that into reality, and I don't know exactly how to do that. You have to, an idea comes up, and then you have to manipulate it into some sort of action, right? And just thought I'd sit further away. Yeah, I don't know. It's a beautiful day. The sun is out, and it feels like the world is just moving onwards and upwards. Is it moving upwards? I don't know. It's arbitrary, right? But I'm I'm going through a period in my life where things feel stagnant, and they just feel lackluster and devoid of any inherent meaning at the moment. So I've got to get to a place where I develop that self-respect, which is difficult to do because I've got a really distorted sense of self, admittedly. Poetry helps. Being around nature helps. Making other people laugh helps. It's okay to keep things simple, I'm learning. Okay, simple is fine. And as cliche as it may sound, the little things, the simple things in life give rise to more significant, beautiful moments, I think. And just opening yourself up, allowing yourself to feel fully. It's kind of the, it's the one that opens himself up that isn't able to let others in, and then those in turn will see that reflection, and they'll be able to open themselves up. and you'll just kind of bounce this positive energy off one another, I believe. And then it's the empty space of seemingly nothingness that gives rise to beautiful things in life. And it all starts with that first step, which is oftentimes the hardest. But yeah, this was a very potentially incoherent rambling video, but I'm keeping it real over here. So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments below. As you can tell, I've got a really itchy eye for some reason. Yeah, if you made it through to the end of this video, then you're a legend, because it was just a complete incoherent word salad ramble, probably. But hey, isn't that philosophy most of the time?